Good afternoon, Mike Winkler here, and I wanted to take a minute and I wanted to talk about achieving NIST compliance. So getting NIST done, because some of these compliance standards can tend to turn into forever projects, right? You get stalled on the way there and it's a nice idea and it never actually gets accomplished. And NIST is a really nice standard, right? The energy industry and a lot of government sectors are working their way towards it, and it's all well and good. The problem is it is sometimes vague and sometimes complicated and sometimes like reading the tax code. So I decided to take a look at NIST, right, and do it a little differently. So I wanted to take NIST as a framework because that's what it's for, right? It is a framework on the best way to get it done. Use the CIS controls for the areas that do need to be controlled, and this seemed to be more or less a standard. But I really wanted to use security intelligence as a means of achievement, right? So I'll demonstrate what I mean by that in the next slide or two. But the idea of NIST is about being in the process of continual improvement, and we cannot be in the process of continual improvement if we don't know what's going on. Okay, so the CIS framework, right? This is a graphic always made me think of a 1970s Star Wars poster. It's a lot of good data arrayed in a way that makes the data look impressive and hard to do anything with. But it's good controls, right? So I decided that it's all good stuff, but we need to look at it a little differently. And on top of that, I love Gartner's maturity curve. At the beginning, everything is initial, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and everything is jump off the block, and what can you think to do right now? All of this good stuff, right? And you're working your way through a place where you have playbooks put together and you're kind of organized, you have some policies, up to the point the kind of end state you want of any time a security incident happens. What it's doing is it is improving your process, what Gartner calls optimizing, right? Everything is continually in the process of getting better. Okay, just the stages so it's viewable for you. So I took the CIS controls from that big Star Wars graphic and I decided I wanted to map them into the functional areas we were doing with IT anyway. So the first bunch is going to be essentially your endpoint detection and response. It's stuff we've been doing for years. It's inventory of devices, software, and configurations. Okay, you secure the configurations, fair enough. It's a mature area. There's a bunch of good products that do this. The next is the vulnerability assessment and the asset assessment. Also no problem at all. So this is essentially the same network scanners we've been doing for years. Again, a mature area, but by putting the two together, it makes it easier to kind of consume this. Then we get to what I like to call is policy and design. And I don't mean to pick on poor Target years after their breach, but they had a lot of great products and great people in place that it didn't matter because the underlying infrastructure of the way things were set up was not well baked, right? So if we look at the control of administrative privilege, of user privilege, and securing network device configuration, and I know there's some great products that will help you secure this once it exists, but policy and design is not a step that can be overlooked, and it cannot be overstated how important it is. Okay. Collect and maintain security logs, establish control of network usage, monitor accounts, do incident response management. Guys, this is security intelligence, and this is what we do. So it is not just a matter of collecting logs, because that's all well and good, and I wouldn't doubt that everybody listening to this video has heard me talk about QRadar, where logs are at the center, but definitely not the whole argument. That we get to see what users are doing, we get to see what's happening with services, and we take that security intelligence and segue through to incident response, and we'll get dirty in that in just a second. But security intelligence, even though it's on the right-hand side of my graphic, is really the center of this. All of these other fun things attached to the intelligence, and that's how we get better. Okay. My network controls, right? They are more or less go back and forth with your endpoint detection and response, right? It's a little hard to draw a line between it, where your malware defenses are and where your DLP is, this kind of thing. And so you get a little column A, a little column B, but it still is a defined managed group. Okay? Security training, penetration testing. This is something that's going to be your follow-up, and this is the place where we all fall down. Very few organizations and very few people in the world do good follow-up. This is one of those things that is about reaching those highest end states of the Gartner map, right? What can we do to do good follow-up so we're continually getting better? And the last is it's data recovery, right? Data recovery, resilience, is one of those things that lives a little bit in an island by itself. As far as security goes, or security planning, you just need to know your resilience is good. If your backup is there, if your failover console is there, if it's not, you're a single failure away from a total network failure, right? So resilience is really, you need to be aware of it, but it's largely a discipline that's outside of security. Okay, fair enough. I also want to take a look at these, and I want to talk about it in that kind of scale of improvement we've been talking about, because some things are going to be more technology intensive and some things are going to be more labor intensive. And the school of thought is we can take all of these functional areas and say, I want them to be moving away from being labor intensive and more to having the technology doing the heavy lifting, right? From a strategy perspective, and what you're trying to accomplish is how much can we make things something that the system knows how to do? And this is kind of the strategy going forward. What we're trying to accomplish here is how much can we take any of these things, including design, including follow-up, and make them more part of the process, more part of good technology, and less something we need to sit around a tabletop and do. Okay. Endpoint. So I'm going to take these areas we were just talking about, and I want to map them to some products. So at IBM, we make BigFix, and we are great friends with our friends over at Carbon Black, right? So there is a lot of great endpoint detection response software out there. They'll see what's going on. They'll run patches for, whatever you got going on out there, Microsoft, Adobe, anything else. And if it sees something bad going on, it will make changes. So it gives you a full closed life cycle of it, right? And this all, of course, attaches to your security intelligence. Network scanners, there's a whole bunch of great industry vulnerability scanners, and I got a couple of them listed there. And my team makes something called AppScan, and this is one of those things that's called out specifically in the CIS, is to do vulnerability scans of your in-house developed apps. Because really often we have seen the things you develop in-house are where there's vulnerabilities you didn't see coming. So a special purpose app scanner is kind of a must to hit some of those data points. Okay, network devices. There's a lot of great folks out there, Digital Guardian and McAfee and Juniper and all that good stuff, that do great network devices. And, with the IBM solutions, with our security intelligence, we'll, of course, map to all of them. We will take the good data coming from all of these things and make it part of our intelligence model to achieve this NIST, right? So, okay, fair enough. It's a matter of whoever you want to plug in, we are good with them. Resiliency and DR. This is something that's changed a lot in the last couple of years. It used to be that you'd set up a second data center, a second server next to the one in your server farm, so that if something blows a motherboard, someone spills a coffee in the wrong place, black fiber gets run over, the city of Atlanta gets blacked out, you have another physical facility that will pick up the functionality of what was going on at your main facility. Makes sense. But this more and more is becoming a cloud function, right? To say, oh man, my firewall went down, something caught fire in the server room. This is something that maps over to a resiliency service as a cloud service. You absolutely can still do it the old school way, but we are seeing it lean more and more towards business resiliency services. Policy and design is about being smart. This is not something you can half-bake. This is something that's the answer, and you're going to have to go through, do the hard work on the front end of it. Now, IBM Security Services has a great team that will come help you do that. And there's some products like the Identity Access Management that will help you log these things in once you've done the policy and design. But really, this is the point at which you need to stand back, take a deep breath, and set things up well before you start doing anything like software deployment or building rules. Okay, and follow-up. Follow-up's always going to be hard work, and there's not much that'll change that. That is the time when our big bright mind experts move off to other projects, and you take your eye off the ball because everything's running, and it's hard to get in that continuous improvement mind state or that continuous improvement process, because follow-up requires a lot of intense effort to continually relook at things and how you can make it better. And of course, it boils down to security intelligence. And let me mess around with the way we're looking at this a little bit here. So I'm going to take all of these great functions and I'm going to apply them to the Gartner model. And you are going from the initial to the optimizing. Your network scanners, your devices, even your DR status. It goes in from where are we and what does this mean, working its way to this kind of managed state. And this has to be done, right? I've never seen another way, by pumping all of this into a central intelligence point that hopefully isn't just your guy Jerry in the server room and you hope he never takes a day off work, but it pumps into a piece of security intelligence so that you can be in the process of taking all these data points and getting better, right? That's our whole point. We continuously want to get better. But even one step beyond that, because that's good, right? Security intelligence we could define as, like I was saying, knowing what you're doing and learning to do it better. Fair enough. But QRadar allows you to move from that initial state into a managed state. Okay, makes sense. Resilient allows you to do incident response planning, because only a good incident response plan, people, process, and technology, will allow you to move into that optimizing state. Anytime an event happens, it needs to pass through a process of, oh, hey, we had a firewall go down. We had a user that got malware. We had ransomware inside the environment. We had, any number of bad things can go wrong. If you are not having a lessons learned discussion every time something goes wrong, or even when things don't go wrong, because there's a continual change of technology, you are never going to reach the high end of this state, right? So rather than an arrow at this point, it turns into a cycle, right? And this is really what a good incident response plan is. It's a cycle so that everything you learn, you pump through all of these good devices we've been talking about into your intelligence engine, so it teaches you to do better. And unlike working it through, a couple of smart guys in the server room, this allows you to move it from the labor-intensive to more software-intensive, and hopefully it'd be at the point that we're never at the mercy of if someone takes a sick day or takes another job, that our systems don't work anymore, and that they will work at becoming self-perfecting, right? So this is Mike Winkler, and this has been our conversation on NIST.